Now, Qatar, Egypt and the United States announced that Hamas and Israel have reached a multi-phased deal that halts the conflict in Gaza and leads to the release of Israeli captives in the territory. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani announced that negotiators had reached a deal on Wednesday for a ceasefire in the Gaza conflict. Addressing a press conference, the Qatari Prime Minister said both Israel and Hamas agreed to exchange prisoners and hostages. Qatar also announced an agreement for the delivery of humanitarian aid to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Qatar, the Arab Republic of Egypt and the United States are happy to announce the success of joint mediation efforts in order to reach a deal between the parties in conflict in the Gaza territory, to exchange prisoners and hostages, and a return to a prolonged truce that achieves a permanent ceasefire between the two sides. The implementation of the agreement will begin on Sunday, January 19th.
The Qatari Prime Minister further said the deal will begin with a 42-day period that would see the release of 33 Israeli captives and a number of Palestinian prisoners.
The first phase of the agreement, which will last for 42 days, will witness a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Israeli forces to the east and away from the populated areas to be stationed on the border in all areas of the Gaza Strip. The exchange of prisoners and hostages according to a specific mechanism, the exchange of the remains of the deceased and the return of the displaced to their places of residence.
Now, confirming the Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal, US President Joe Biden said the deal will end the fighting in Gaza and surge humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians. Biden termed it one of the toughest negotiations of his life.
I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. More than 15 months of conflict. Well, we've had many difficult days since Hamas began its terrible war. We've encountered roadblocks and setbacks. We've not given up. And now, after more than 400 days of struggle, a day of success has arrived. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families.
Now, US President-elect Donald Trump has welcomed the deal. In a social media post, Donald Trump said his national security team will continue to work closely with Israel and other allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked US President Joe Biden and US President-elect Donald Trump for securing the Gaza truce and hostage release deal. In a phone call, Netanyahu thanked US President-elect Donald Trump for securing a hostages deal and putting an end to the suffering of dozens of hostages and their families. Netanyahu agreed to meet Trump soon in Washington. The Israeli Prime Minister also thanked US President Joe Biden for his help in the hostages deal in a phone call. Israeli President Isaac Herzog, in a televised address on Wednesday, said that Gaza deal was the right move to bring all the captives back home. Herzog said the deal will bring difficult, agonizing and extremely moving moments. He also thanked US President Biden and the President-elect Donald Trump for their efforts. Now, families and friends of Israeli hostages hugged and lit torches in a demonstration in Tel Aviv after negotiators reached a multi-phased Gaza deal. Several videos surfaced on social media showing people gathering in groups, hugging and taking photos with their mobile phones to mark the announcement and celebrate it. They say the nightmare of more than a year is finally coming to an end. Crowds took to the streets of Khan Younis to celebrate the truce deal. People cheered, danced and blew horns to mark the 6-week initial ceasefire deal that includes the gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. And to discuss more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent Anil Thomas. Anil, a very good morning to you. Now, the much-awaited temporary ceasefire deal has been agreed upon. Celebrations are taking place in the crucial regions as well. Tell us the significance of this deal and how is it going to pan out in a phased manner?
Well, good morning, Deepika. Well, this particular deal was very much on the horizon since the beginning of New Year. And, this particular ceasefire now coming into play, at least starting from 19th, that's Saturday. So clearly that's something that people are looking forward to, especially on how this particular deal will pan out, since it would take place on the 19th. Remember, we have almost seen 467 days of hardships, trials and tribulations, and an area or conflict that these two places have witnessed. If you look purely in terms of casualties, close to 1,100 and still counting, that Israel have lost civilians as well as soldiers. On the Gaza side, you have almost 46,000 people, over 46,000 people that have been killed, over 1 lakh people that have been injured. So numbers in terms of casualties very much high on the Gaza side of the Palestinian strip. And also when you look at West Bank, close to 852 people that have been killed there, which include many children and civilians too. So this particular turmoil, this particular trial and tribulation, that's almost been now for almost over 15 months, clearly seeing some kind of, I would say, pause or hitting a speed breaker with this particular ceasefire. This ceasefire is broken into 3 different parts. The first part is very important because 33 people who are in captive will be released. And it's very interesting when one takes a look at the deal, because the way the deal has been panned out, it looks very much that Israel, there is no objection that Israel would have, especially when it comes to the deal, because it suits them in every possible way. Let's look at it. 33 Israeli, detainees, or you would say captives, that would be released. What will Israel give in exchange? That's something that's interesting. For every women soldier that's been released, close to 50 Palestinians captives will be released, and for every other person that's been released from the captive by Palestine or from the Gaza Strip, you're going to get 30 people in return. So it's a good deal that works perfectly fine for either sides. And also with regards to humanitarian aid, this comes as a big relief for UN, who has been time and again trying to broker some kind of a deal or some kind of a ceasefire here. Close to 600 unarmed now vans can enter into this particular Palestinian strip and help people, especially in the northern part or the northern strip of Palestine. I think that's important because civilians, especially children and people, have been displaced. And I think this particular truce window that's been opened, this particular truce window that begins in a few days from time, we'll have to wait and watch how things play out till then, till the date arrives. But I think a time to introspect, a time to celebrate for people on both sides.
Indeed. Now, this also comes at a crucial time for the US, and especially by the US playing an important role here. But the Israel cabinet is yet to reach a final approval. What next are we expecting?
Well, there are 2 things to look at. First, who did Benjamin Netanyahu call first? Who was the first person that he called in the United States? And that's clearly from the communication that's drawn out that he's called Donald Trump, the incoming president, the 47th president of America, followed by a call to Joe Biden, the 2 people that he spoke to, Benjamin Netanyahu. First, you need to understand the reasons why he's done it. You've got Donald Trump's Middle East negotiator there working simultaneously along with the Trump administration in striking this deal. So, the reasons for Benjamin Netanyahu to thank both incoming president as well as outgoing president of United States of America. Within the Israeli cabinet, there is still problems to be sorted out. The finance minister don't seem to be on the same page, especially when it comes to the deal. He doesn't believe this particular deal is needed. But having said that, he doesn't have the numbers to push for this deal to somewhere hit a roadblock. And that's where things stand, and that's where Benjamin Netanyahu, looks almost certain that though the fighting continues on the Gaza Strip as we speak, there has been some kind of bombardment that's taken place, but still unconfirmed reports. But all in all, Benjamin Netanyahu has no reason now to say no to this particular ceasefire deal. I think it works perfectly for him. It gives him a window, it gives him a leeway where he comes out as a hero for his people of Israel, and also for the world, because the world has been looking with bated breath, when could we see an end to this particular conflict that's now, that's gone beyond a year. I think New Year brings good tidings for both the people of Israel, the people of Gaza, and also for the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Anil, for joining us and bringing us the latest on the ceasefire deal that has been agreed on the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict. So now we tell you all about the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal. Let's take a look at it. We'll quickly bring you the quick and important facts that we need to know about the current Gaza ceasefire deal which has been agreed upon. The Israel cabinet is yet to approve it, but this comes at a very crucial time because we also heard the US president and his last speech on the day when he was about to deliver his last speech. This crucial moment came in. Now, global leaders welcomed the much-awaited historical ceasefire deal, ending a 15-month-long conflict in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the ceasefire and stressed that the priority now must be to ease the tremendous suffering caused by this conflict. And hailing the Truce deal, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said both the parties must fully implement this agreement as a stepping stone towards lasting stability in the region and a diplomatic resolution of the conflict. And President of the International Committee of the Red Cross expressed hope that this agreement marks a new beginning. The Red Cross has said it is ready to help and implement the ceasefire agreement and facilitate the release of captives along with the prisoners. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi pointed to the importance of accelerating the entry of urgent humanitarian aid into Gaza as he welcomed a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Sisi said the deal came after the strenuous efforts over more than a year of Egyptian, Qatari and US mediation. Now, Australia also welcomed the ceasefire agreement in Gaza, with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese calling it a constructive step towards peace and stability in the region.